The email hit my phone like a bullet through glass, shattering the fragile calm of my 12-hour shift. I was slumped in the hospital break room, my nurse's scrubs damp with sweat, my hands still trembling from a code blue that nearly lost us a patient. The screen glowed with a message from Mark, my husband of 12 years. "Laura, I'm done. I'm in love with Taylor and we're starting over. I've taken our $100,000 savings, the vacation home loan. That's on you. Good luck. Good luck." The man who'd kissed my forehead, who'd promised forever over cheap diner coffee, had just gutted our life with a single smug sentence. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the break room's fluorescent lights flickering like a bad omen overhead. My chest tightened each breath, a jagged shard of disbelief. 12 years of scraping by, of late-night shifts to keep our son Elliot in school, of believing Mark's "we're in this together" mantra erased in an instant. He'd drained our $100,000 nest egg, every penny we'd saved for Elliot's future, and left me with a $100,000 loan for a vacation home I'd never even wanted. All for Taylor, his dazzling new partner, whose charm had blinded him to the family he swore to protect. Did Mark think I'd collapse a pathetic heap of tears while he and Taylor danced off into their glittering new life? Did he honestly believe I'd let this betrayal bury me? I'm Laura Bennett, a 35-year-old nurse who thought she knew the man she married that night. As Mark pictured me broken, I wasn't sobbing, I was scheming. My heart pounded not with grief, but with a fire I hadn't felt in years. This isn't just the story of a marriage torn apart by a coward's whim. It's about a mother who stared into the abyss of betrayal and found a way to climb out with her 10-year-old son lighting the path. How did I turn Mark's knife in my back into my greatest weapon? And what did Elliot, a boy barely tall enough to reach the kitchen counter, do to outsmart a man who thought he'd won it all? Stay with me. This is a fight you won't forget, and the ending will leave you speechless. Picture this: a sticky summer evening 12 years ago. Mark and I tucked into a vinyl booth at Rosie's Diner, our knees brushing under the table, our dreams as big as the neon sign outside. I was 23. A nursing student with ink-stained notebooks and a heart full of grit. Mark, with his crooked grin and real estate brochures, swore he'd build us a life. Nothing fancy, just a home where our son Elliot could grow up safe. We'd laugh over burnt toast, plan family road trips, and whisper about the future like it was a secret only we shared. That was us, Laura and Mark, high school sweethearts who thought love could outrun any storm. Fast forward to 3 years ago, and the dreams started to fray. Mark wasn't the man who'd traced constellations on my palm anymore. His real estate deals dried up his big break, always one pitch away. He'd come home late, reeking of bourbon and excuses, client meetings. He'd mutter, his eyes dodging mine. I'd catch him scrolling through texts, his thumb hesitating over a locked screen, his jaw tight when I asked who it was. And then there was Taylor, his new client at a networking gala, a transgender woman whose confidence lit up rooms. Mark couldn't stop talking about her bold ideas, her sleek wardrobe, the way she got him. "She's just different, Laura," he'd say, his voice sharp like my sensible ponytail and scuffed sneakers were a personal offense. I saw the cracks but refused to name them. Love does that, doesn't it? It blinds you with memories of better days at our last family barbecue. Elliot, barely 7, tugged my sleeve and asked why Daddy was always mad. I brushed it off, flipping burgers with a forced smile, telling myself Mark was just stressed, but the whispers grew louder. Mark's sister Karen raised an eyebrow at Taylor's name, her voice dripping with country club disdain. "She's so bold, Laura. Not your type of people." I defended him, defended her, swallowing my doubts like bitter medicine. Was I too boring, too buried in hospital shifts to keep his spark, or was something darker brewing behind his charming facade? The truth hit me one chilly October night when I found a receipt in Mark's coat pocket, $180 for a candlelit dinner at the Ivy, a place we'd never afford, dated for a night he'd sworn he was pitching a deal. My stomach churned the paper, trembling in my hands like a confession. This wasn't just a midlife crisis. This was a plan, a deliberate unraveling of the life we'd built. And yet I tucked the receipt away, too scared to confront the man I thought I knew. Did I think ignoring it would stitch our family back together? Or was I already bracing for the fall? I'm Laura, and that receipt was my first glimpse of the truth Mark tried to bury. While he chased a fantasy with Taylor, I was holding our family together with duct tape and hope. This isn't just about a marriage crumbling. It's about the moment I learned love can't save you from a liar's schemes. Want to know how I stopped being the fool and started fighting back? The storm's just beginning. Let's walk through it together. 3 days after Mark's email, the one that gutted my life with a casual good luck, I stood in the hospital locker room, my scrubs still reeking of antiseptic. My phone trembling in my hands. I'd been dodging the truth, pretending his words were a bad dream, but I couldn't anymore. I opened our joint bank account, the one we'd poured every spare dime into for Elliot's college fund for our future. The balance stared back at me. $42.17. $100,000, our entire life savings gone siphoned away by the man who'd sworn to protect us, and the $100,000 loan for that cursed vacation home. It loomed over me, a guillotine with my name carved into the blade. My knees buckled the cold tile, biting through my scrubs. This wasn't just betrayal, it was annihilation. Mark had left me drowning in debt with nothing but pocket change and a 10-year-old son to raise. My mind spiraled. How would I pay the mortgage, keep Elliot in school? I saw my reflection in the locker's scratched surface. A 35-year-old nurse, eyes hollow, face pale, looking like a woman who'd trusted the wrong man for too long. Did Mark think I'd just roll over? Let his new life with Taylor erase mine? Was this his plan all along, to strip me bare and walk away laughing? Claire Thompson, my financial advisor friend, barged in her tailored blazer, a stark contrast to my disheveled state. "Laura, you look like hell," she said, tossing her purse onto a bench. I spilled everything: Mark's email, the empty account, the loan. Her eyes narrowed, not with pity, but with the kind of tough love that stings. "You never separated your finances, Laura. That's your first mistake. Joint accounts are a trap when trust is a lie." Her words were a slap, waking me from my fog. She pulled up her tablet, showing me the brutal truth. 60% of women lose major assets in divorce because they share everything, a stat from a 2024 CNBC report she'd bookmarked. I wanted to argue, to say Mark and I were different, but the $42.17 on my screen laughed in my face. Before I could answer Claire, the locker room door creaked open, and there was Elliot, my 10-year-old. His backpack slung over one shoulder, his eyes wide with worry. He'd come straight from school somehow, sensing I was unraveling. "Mom, why's Dad gone?" he asked, his voice small but steady, cutting through the chaos in my head. I froze, my heart twisting. How do you tell your son his father stole their future? Claire shot me a look, "Don't lie to him," but my throat tightened, caught between shielding Elliot and facing the truth. Was I protecting him, or just delaying the pain we'd both have to carry? I'm Laura, and that moment in the locker room wasn't just a financial gut punch. It was the wake-up call I didn't want, but desperately needed. While Mark and Taylor lived their fantasy, I was staring at a bank balance that mocked 12 years of sacrifice. But this isn't just about losing everything. It's about the fight I didn't know I had in me, sparked by a boy who refused to let us break. Want to know how a mother and son turned ruin into rebellion? The battle's just getting started. Stay with me. I was midway through a night shift, the kind that leaves your bones aching and your soul threadbare when my body betrayed me. The hospital corridor spun a kaleidoscope of white coats and blinking lights as my knees buckled under the weight of Mark's betrayal. I'd been running on fumes since his email, $100,000 stolen alone, choking me my son's future hanging by a thread. My heart pounded like a trapped animal, each beat screaming the truth. I was failing Elliot, failing myself. I slid down the wall, scrubs catching on the rough paint, my vision blurring as a nurse's voice called my name from a distance. Laura, stay with me, but I was already slipping, drowning in the wreckage of a life I thought I'd built. I woke to the sterile chill of a hospital bed, an IV needle biting into my arm, the ceiling tiles staring down like a jury. The doctor's words hit like a hammer. Stress-induced hypertension, a ticking bomb from weeks of sleepless nights, and Mark's knife in my back. You need rest, Laura, or it'll get worse. She warned her clipboard a grim prophecy. Rest with a $100,000 debt and a 10-year-old counting on me. I turned my head, catching my reflection in the bedside monitor, a ghost of a woman, eyes sunken, lips cracked, the nurse who saved others but couldn't save herself. Did Mark know he'd pushed me this far to the edge of breaking? Did he care? Laughing with Taylor in their stolen paradise while I fought to breathe? The door swung open and there was Elliot, my 10-year-old, his backpack dangling from one hand, his face pale under the fluorescent glare. Mom, you're not gonna die, right? He whispered, his voice cracking, eyes wide with a terror. No child should know. He'd been called from school. Rushed to my bedside by a teacher who saw his panic. I forced a smile, my hand reaching for his, but inside guilt tore me apart. This was my fault, trusting Mark, ignoring the cracks, letting his betrayal poison my body. I wanted to shield Elliot, to promise I'd be fine, but the words stuck, choked by the weight of our reality. How could I lie to the boy who'd already lost his father to a lie? Claire stormed in her financial advisor's poise, barely masking her worry. Laura, you can't do this to yourself or Elliot, she snapped, setting her coffee cup down with a deliberate clink. You're letting Mark win by falling apart. If you don't fight now, you'll lose everything, your home, your son's future. Her words stung a brutal mirror to my fragility. She pulled out her phone, showing me a 2023 Kaiser Family Foundation study. 40% of single mothers face health crises from financial stress, many losing their jobs. You're not a statistic, Laura, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. Get up or Mark's betrayal becomes your epitaph. I wanted to snap back to say I was trying, but her truth was undeniable. I was teetering on the edge, and Elliot deserved better. I'm Laura. And that hospital bed wasn't just a breaking point. It was a reckoning. Mark thought he could shatter me, leave me buried under debt and doubt. But he underestimated the fire a mother carries for her child. As Elliot's hand gripped mine, I felt a spark. A promise to fight not just for me, but for him. This isn't just about a body failing under betrayal's weight. It's about the moment I chose to rise with a boy's love and a friend's truth as my armor. Want to know how a broken woman and her 10-year-old son turned despair into defiance? The fight's heating up. Stay with me. I was propped up in my hospital bed, the IV drip a cold tether to my fragile body, when Elliot's voice sliced through the fog of my despair. Mom, I know where Dad is, he said, his 10-year-old frame perched on the edge of a plastic chair, his eyes glinting with a fire I hadn't seen before. My heart stuttered, not from the hypertension that had landed me here, but from the weight of his words. 3 weeks after Mark's email stole our $100,000 savings and saddled me with a matching debt, my son was staring at a tablet, his fingers dancing over a GPS app that tracked a family device Mark had forgotten to unlink. He's at a campground in Willow Creek, Elliot said, zooming in on a blinking dot, with Taylor. Living in our vacation home, I blinked my mind scrambling to catch up. Elliot, barely tall enough to reach the kitchen counter, had been tracking his father's every move. While I lay here broken by Mark's betrayal, I knew Dad was lying. He continued, his voice steady, but edged with a kid's righteous anger. Last summer, when we set up the family tablet for camping, I saw him install the GPS app. He never logged out. My mouth went dry. This was my son, my comic book-loving math whiz son, outsmarting a grown man who thought he'd won. But as his plan spilled out, my awe turned to ice. "We report the vacation home as stolen, Mom," he said, eyes blazing. "It's in your name." And I found Taylor's roommate on Instagram. She knows stuff about Taylor that Dad doesn't. We can use it. My stomach twisted. Was I really about to let my 10-year-old wage war on his own father? The room felt smaller, the air thick with a choice I didn't want to make. Elliot's plan was brilliant, terrifyingly so. Reporting the vacation home as stolen could force Mark to face the law, and Taylor's roommate, a barista named Jess, who'd spilled secrets in DMs, hinted at Taylor's shady past. But every fiber of me screamed to protect Elliot, to keep him out of this adult mess. I saw his small hands gripping the tablet, his jaw set like a soldier's, and guilt clawed at me. Was I failing him by letting him fight my battles, or was I failing him by not trusting his strength? Claire's words from the locker room echoed. "If you don't fight, you'll lose everything but this." This was a line I wasn't sure I could cross. Elliot swiped the screen, showing me Jess's message. "Taylor's been dodging debts for years. I've got proof." My breath caught. This wasn't just a kid's hunch. It was a weapon forged by a boy who'd seen through his father's lies when I couldn't. I thought of a 2023 parenting study I'd read in a waiting room. 20% of single moms lean on their kids for emotional support, a risky but real choice. Risky, yes, but as Elliot looked at me, his eyes pleading for trust, I felt the ground shift. Mark had bet on my weakness, on my collapse. He hadn't bet on Elliot, the boy who'd turned a camping app into a trap. Could we really pull this off, a broken nurse and her pint-sized genius against a man who'd stolen our future? I'm Laura, and that hospital room wasn't just a cage for my failing body, it was the birthplace of a rebellion. While Mark and Taylor played house in our stolen home, my 10-year-old son was rewriting the rules of our fight. This isn't just about a kid with a tablet. It's about the moment a mother learned her son's courage could light the way. Want to know how we turned a GPS dot into Mark's undoing? The plan's unfolding, and it's bigger than you think. Stay with me. The air at Willow Creek campground was thick with the scent of pine and betrayal as I pulled our beat-up sedan to a stop, Elliot gripping his tablet in the passenger seat. 3 weeks after Mark stole our $100,000 savings and left me with a matching debt, we were here outside the vacation home. He and Taylor were squatting in its sleek windows, glowing like a taunt. My hands shook on the steering wheel, not from fear, but from a rage that had been simmering since that hospital bed I'd called the police, reporting the home as stolen property, my name on the deed as my trump card. But as we stepped out, the crowd of campers grilling hot dogs, sipping beers, turned to stare their whispers, a spotlight on our reckoning. Was I ready to face the man who'd burned our life to ash? Mark swaggered out of the vacation home, his designer sunglasses perched like a crown, Taylor at his side, her tailored jacket catching the firelight. "Laura?" What the hell, he barked, his voice dripping with the arrogance of a man who thought he'd already won. Taylor's smirk was sharper, her confidence unshaken, until I locked eyes with her and saw a flicker of doubt. Elliot, clutching his tablet like a shield, stepped forward. "You're in Mom's house, Dad," he said, his 10-year-old voice steady, cutting through the evening haze. The crowd murmured, phones raised, capturing the drama like vultures circling a kill. My heart pounded part pride, part terror. Had I gone too far dragging my son into this public war? Before Mark could retort, Jess Taylor's barista roommate pushed through the crowd, her backpack slung low, her eyes blazing with a truth she'd held too long. "Taylor's not who you think, Mark?" she said, holding up a stack of printed emails, proof of Taylor's 2022 scam conviction, a debt-dodging scheme that had fleeced a small business out of $50,000. I'd connected Jess to the police via Elliot's Instagram DMs, her evidence the second prong of our attack. Mark's face drained of color, his sunglasses slipping as he stammered, "What is this?" Taylor's smirk vanished, her voice rising in a desperate pitch. "That's ancient history, Jess," she snapped, but the crowd's gasps drowned her out. I stepped closer, my voice cold as steel hand over the keys. "Mark, and the $100,000 you stole. Or the cops take you both." Mark's hands shook as he tossed the keys at my feet, his charm crumbling under the weight of Jess's proof and the police's glare. "You're ruining everything, Laura," he shouted, but his voice cracked. A coward unmasked, Taylor turned on him, her eyes wild. "You said you had this handled, Mark. You lied to me." The crowd's phones kept rolling their whispers now, a roar amplifying the humiliation I saw. Elliot's small frame stiffen, his tablet still glowing with the GPS dot that led us here. Guilt stabbed me. Had I turned my son into a soldier for my revenge? But his eyes met mine, fierce and unyielding, and I knew this wasn't just my fight, it was ours. A 2022 Florida case flashed through my mind, a woman who lost $80,000 to a partner's fraud, her story a mirror to mine. Mark wasn't just a thief, he was a pattern, and we were breaking it. I'm Laura, and that campground wasn't just a battleground, it was where Mark's lies burned to ash. With Elliot's genius and a stranger's courage, we turned a stolen home into a reclaimed future. But this isn't just about keys and confrontation. It's about a mother and son who faced a traitor and found their strength. Want to know how we sealed Mark's fate in a courtroom? The victory's coming, and it's sweeter than you think. Stay with me. The courtroom air was heavy, thick with the scent of polished oak and nervous anticipation. As I sat at the plaintiff's table, my navy blazer pressed to mask the tremors in my hands. Across the aisle, Mark slouched in a cheap suit, his once charming grin replaced by a nervous tic, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. 3 months after he stole our $100,000 savings and left me with a matching debt here, we were in a San Francisco County courthouse, fighting for the scraps of my life. My lawyer, Rachel Nguyen, stood like a general, her voice a blade, ready to carve through Mark's lies. But as the judge's gavel fell, signaling the start, a whisper of doubt crept in. Could I really win against the man who'd rewritten our story to paint me as the failure? Rachel slid a thick file across the bench, its pages brimming with Elliot's GPS databank records and Jess's emails exposing Taylor's scam conviction. "Your Honor." She declared, her tone icy. "Mr. Bennett committed theft and fraud, draining $100,000 from a joint account and occupying a vacation home solely in Miss Bennett's name." She projected Mark's email on a screen, his words searing the room. "The loan's on you, Laura. Good luck." The gallery gasped, a ripple of shock at his casual cruelty. I watched Mark's face, his jaw tightening, as Rachel read aloud Jess's testimony. Taylor's $50,000 fraud in 2022, a shadow Mark never saw coming. Did he think his charm could outrun the truth? Or had he believed I'd stay silent, too broken to fight Mark's lawyer? A sweaty man in a rumpled tie scrambled to his feet. "My client was trapped in a strained marriage, Your Honor," he pleaded. Ms. Bennett's workaholic nature drove him to desperate measures trapped. I nearly laughed, the irony bitter on my tongue, trapped by the woman who worked 12-hour shifts to keep his dreams afloat. Rachel didn't flinch. Desperate, she countered, slapping down the vacation home's deed, my name alone in bold ink. This property, like Ms. Bennett's inherited savings, was never joint. Mr. Bennett's theft was calculated, not desperate, the judge. A stern woman with silver hair leaned forward, her pen pausing over her notes. Fraud is a serious charge, counsel. She said, her eyes pinning Mark like a bug. Was this the moment he realized his game was over? Then came the unexpected blow. Karen, Mark's sister, took the stand. Her tailored blouse a stark contrast to her trembling hands. I was wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I believed Mark's lies, that Laura was cold, that Taylor was his escape. But those bank records, that email, he used us all. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of her betrayal and redemption hanging heavy. I met her eyes, a flicker of our old friendship sparking through my anger. Karen's testimony wasn't just evidence, it was a crack in Mark's family fortress, one I never thought I'd see. My heart surged, not with vengeance, but with a quiet pride. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was fighting for Elliot, for the truth, for every woman Mark thought he could bury. The gavel fell and the judge's verdict rang out. The court finds Mr. Bennett liable for theft and fraud. He will repay the $100,000 plus $600 monthly child support, deducted from his wages at a court-monitored job. Mark's face crumpled his plea. I don't have it met with the judge's steel. Find it or face contempt. I stood the keys to the vacation home, heavy in my pocket, my blazer no longer a shield but a badge. Rachel squeezed my arm, her smile a silent, we did it. The gallery buzzed, but I felt Elliot's absence. He was at school safe from this war. A 2024 legal trend flashed through my mind. 70% of divorce cases now hinge on digital evidence, like our GPS data. Mark had bet on my silence, but he'd lost to a mother's resolve and a boy's brilliance. I'm Laura, and that courtroom wasn't just a battlefield. It was my declaration of independence. Mark thought he could erase me, but with Elliot's plan and Rachel's skill, I took back my power. This isn't just about winning a case. It's about a woman who turned a thief's lies into her truth. Want to know how Mark's world fell apart after the gavel fell? The fallout's next, and it's more than you expect. Stay with me. The courtroom gavel's echo had barely faded when I stepped onto my porch, the San Francisco fog curling around the streetlights like a shroud. The victory was mine. $100,000, ordered, repaid. The vacation home keys in my pocket. Mark's lies laid bare, but the weight of it all pressed against my chest. I'd won, but at what cost? 3 months after the judge's ruling, I sat on that creaky swing, Elliot's comic book scattered on the floor inside, and let the truth sink in. Mark was gone. Taylor had vanished, and I was left to piece together a life from the ashes of betrayal. The suburban quiet felt like a lie masking the storm still raging in my heart. Had I fought for justice, or had I dragged my son into a war he shouldn't have seen? Mark's fall was swift, a pathetic unraveling. I pieced together from whispers and his own desperate texts. "You've destroyed me, Laura," he wrote as if I'd held the pen that signed his fate. He'd moved into a dingy studio apartment, the kind with peeling paint and a flickering bulb, his real estate dreams buried under a low-wage factory job the court had mandated. His Instagram once a parade of flashy suits, and Taylor's arm and frame went silent, replaced by a single post, a blurry coffee cup captioned, "Starting over, starting over." The man who'd stolen our $100,000 savings, who'd left Elliot without a father, thought a latte could rewrite his sins. I scrolled through his messages, each one a mix of groveling and venom, and felt a pang not of pity, but of disgust. Did he expect me to mourn his self-made ruin? The doorbell jolted me from my thoughts, and there stood Karen Mark's sister, her designer scarf, a stark contrast to the shame in her eyes. "Laura, I was wrong," she said, her voice cracking like thin ice. "I believed Mark's stories about you, about Taylor. I'm sorry." Her apology hung in the air, a bridge to a friendship I'd thought lost. She'd stood by Mark in the beginning, her country club whispers blaming me for his straying, but the courtroom had cracked her loyalty. I invited her in, pouring coffee as she spoke of Mark's isolation, how their family had turned cold, leaving him to stew in his failure. My anger softened not for him, but for her, a woman caught in the same web of his lies. Could I forgive her, rebuild what we'd had, or was trust too fragile to mend? Then there was Taylor. I'd expected her to fade into Mark's shadow, but a LinkedIn update caught my eye. She'd left him landing a job at a startup, her profile photo radiating a cautious hope. Jess, the barista who'd exposed her scam conviction, had messaged me. "Taylor's trying to make things right." She didn't know Mark was married at first. I sat back, the porch swing creaking under me, and let that sink in. Taylor, with her transgender identity and bold charm, wasn't the villain I'd painted, not entirely. She'd been a pawn in Mark's game, her own dreams twisted by his deceit. A 2023 Reddit thread came to mind, a woman who'd rebuilt after a partner's fraud, her story echoing Taylor's quiet pivot. I didn't hate her. I pitied her, a fellow traveler on a road paved with broken trust, but pity didn't erase the $100,000 hole she'd helped dig. Inside, Elliot was sprawled on the couch, his tablet dark for once, his laughter a rare gift after weeks of war. But as I watched him, guilt gnawed at me. I'd let a 10-year-old wield a GPS app like a weapon face his father's shame in a campground spotlight. A therapist's words shared during a hospital follow-up echoed, "Kids need honesty, not protection, but balance it with care." Had I balanced it, or had I leaned too hard on Elliot's strength? His eyes, bright but shadowed, told me he'd carried more than a child should. Yet his hug that night, tight and unyielding, reminded me we'd fought together not just for money, but for our bond. Mark's fall and Taylor's exit weren't the end. They were the clearing of a path we'd walk as a team. I'm Laura, and this aftermath wasn't about gloating over Mark's ruin or Taylor's retreat. It was about facing the cost of victory. With Karen's apology and Elliot's resilience, I saw a truth: betrayal doesn't define you, but your choices do. This isn't just about a thief's downfall, it's about a mother who learned to rebuild on her own terms. Want to know how I turned this chaos into a new beginning for Elliot and me? The rise is next, and it's brighter than you think. Stay with me. The sun spilled through my kitchen window, glinting off the coffee pot as I stood at the counter, a notebook scribbled with dreams open before me. 6 months after the courtroom gavel fell, declaring Mark's $100,000 theft and my victory, I was no longer the broken nurse who'd collapsed under his betrayal. The vacation home was sold, the loan paid, and Elliot's laughter echoed from the living room, a melody of hope. But as I sipped my coffee, a shadow lingered Mark's last text, venomous and petty, "You'll crash without me." Laura, crash. I smirked, setting the mug down with a deliberate clink. He'd burned our past, but I was building a future brick by defiant brick, and no ghost of his could stop me. Could I really turn pain into power, or was I just chasing a dream as fragile as his lies? The first battle was within. Self-doubt crept in like fog whispering. I was just lucky that the courtroom win was a fluke. Late nights staring at the ceiling, I'd wonder, was I enough to rebuild for Elliot? Then Claire. My financial advisor friend sat me down at a bustling cafe, her eyes sharp over her latte. "Laura, you didn't just survive Mark. You outplayed him," she said, sliding a budgeting app across the table. "Own it and build something new." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from fear to focus. I enrolled in a financial literacy course, learning to invest the $100,000 repayment, and started a side hustle hand-poured candles, their lavender scent filling my garage. A 2024 entrepreneur study backed Claire's push 55% of single moms launch businesses, post-divorce turning pain into profit. Was I one of them, or just a dreamer with wax and wick? My candles caught fire figuratively, thank God, at a local craft fair where women hearing my story through whispers lined up to buy. "You're the nurse who beat her ex," one said, clutching a lavender glow. Their support fueled me, and within a year, Laura's light expanded to an online store shipping nationwide. The first check, $5,000, felt like a middle finger to Mark's "You'll crash." I poured it into Elliot's college fund, his future no longer a question mark. But success wasn't without scars. Mark's texts kept coming, bitter jabs. "Your little candles won't last." Each one stung a reminder of the man who'd tried to dim me. I deleted them, but doubt lingered. Could I sustain this, or would his curse outlive him? Then came the call and invitation to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Seattle. I stood before a sea of faces, my voice trembling at first, then steady. "Betrayal doesn't break you, it reveals you," I told them, sharing how Elliot's GPS plan and my candle hustle turned ruin into rebirth. A young mother in the front row, her notebook frantic with scribbles, asked, "How do you trust yourself after losing so much?" I paused, her question cutting deep. "Start small," I said. "A candle, a course, a choice to believe you're enough." The applause was thunderous, but her tearful nod stayed with me, a mirror to my own journey. A 2023 Forbes report echoed my path. 60% of women find purpose post-betrayal through entrepreneurship. I wasn't alone. I was a spark in a wildfire. Meanwhile, Elliot thrived, launching a YouTube channel teaching kids tech safety, his voice bright as he explained firewalls and privacy apps. "This one's for you, Mom," he said, his first video racking up 1,000 views. I watched him, my 10-year-old warrior, and felt a truth settle. Mark's betrayal hadn't just pushed me to rise, it had freed us both. The garage, once a tomb of debt, was now a workshop of dreams, candlelight dancing on the walls, but every glow carried a question: could I keep this fire burning, or would doubt snuff it out? Mark's shadow was fading, but his words lingered, a final test of my strength. "I'm Laura, and this rise wasn't just about candles or courtrooms. It was about rewriting my story on my terms." Mark thought he'd bury me, but he only cleared the ground for my empire. With Elliot's light and Claire's wisdom, I built a future from pain. This isn't just about standing up, it's about soaring. Want to know the lessons I learned to protect my future and yours? The wisdom's next, and it's a roadmap you won't want to miss. Stay with me. I stood in my living room, the glow of a single lamp, casting golden streaks across Elliot's comic books, scattered like treasures on the coffee table. 9 months after Mark's betrayal, $100,000, stolen, a debt that nearly broke me, I was no longer the nurse who collapsed in a hospital corridor. The courtroom victory, my candle business, Elliot's YouTube channel, they weren't just wins. They were proof that betrayal doesn't get the last word. But as I traced a finger over a candle's lavender wick, a truth hit me. My story wasn't mine alone. It belonged to every woman who's faced a knife in the back, every soul who's stared down doubt and chosen to rise. And that's why I'm here in this quiet moment, inviting you to join me on TPT Affair Stories, my YouTube channel where we turn pain into power. ready to be part of something bigger than one woman's fight. Let me tell you about Maria, a viewer who messaged me last week. Her words trembling through my phone screen. She was 32, a single mom like me, her husband gone with their savings, leaving her with $20,000 in credit card debt. I saw your story, Laura, she wrote, and I started a journal like you did. I caught his lies, bank transfers to his new girlfriend. Her first entry scribbled in a diner at 2 a.m. led to a lawyer's office, and a plan to rebuild Maria's story isn't just hers, it's yours. Mine, ours. Every choice to trust your gut to write that first note to fight back is a spark that can change everything. But here's the catch. The world wants us to stay silent, to shrink under betrayal's weight. Will you let it, or will you light a fire like Maria did? That's why I created TPT Affair Stories, a place where women like us, scarred but unbowed, share tales of betrayal and triumph. Every video is a beacon, a reminder that you're not alone in the dark, but we need you to make this fire roar. If you've ever faced a liar's sting, doubted your worth, or dreamed of rising stronger, hit that red subscribe button on TPT Affair Stories right now. Drop your story in the comments. Tell me the moment you saw through the lies, or the one you wish you had. Like this video, share it with a friend who needs to hear it, and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming. Next week, I'm diving into how I turned $50 into a candle empire during Chaos Secrets. You'll wish you knew sooner. Don't wait for someone else to write your comeback. Join us and let's craft your victory together. I'm Laura, and this journey isn't just about me or Elliot, it's about you. Mark thought he could dim my light, but with every story we share, we burn brighter. A small lesson I learned: one choice, one journal entry, one candle, one step can rewrite your future. The world loves to silence us, but together we're unstoppable. Subscribe to TPT Affair Stories, share your spark, and let's rise from the ashes. Who's with me?